All right, welcome back, sports, culture, and politics. Right? Is that kind of? No, no. It's kind of we got to work on. Yeah, we got to work on the title. That's what the YouTube channel is called. But appreciate everybody for joining us. I'm T Dub. This is Mark Jerome. Got a number of topics today. What do we got, Mark?
We've got, of course, the Caitlin Clark continuation. We have Bill Walton. We can briefly mention him, and it was a little while ago he passed. We've got Major League Baseball, now including Negro League player stats. And if we want to talk about the Travis Kelce, Joe Biden, which you're much more up on than I am, let's hit those.
And there's also, I don't know if it's worthy of talking about, but the NBA rights,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
what that means for TNT and everybody's favorite inside the NBA crew. Seems like there's a lot of fuss around that. So,
Well,
what do you?
also, it's going to mean because the players, they're now talking about there could be the first. Oh, we should also talk about Oklahoma softball, women's softball, four Pete,
Let's do it.
which is amazing, right? But to talk about the NBA players, what they could be the first $100 million man in a couple of years.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, considering Jaylen Brown's making what 50 plus.
Yeah, he did 306.
Yeah, I think so. But so with the new TV rights deal, the salaries are going to jump
Dramatic.
significantly,
Yes.
right? So I've heard predictions of $100 million man. I think the year was projected was 25 or 26, which
Wow.
means all salaries I think are going to jump.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm hoping for a beach house like
Yeah,
this.
we need it.
Well, the dudes making 50 don't necessarily need 100, but whatever. I'm not whatever. If that's what the TV rights gets them, and
Hey,
they're just
timing, I mean, as we know, timing is everything with these. Like it's kind of luck. Like you playing well and your contract's up and collective bargaining, all of this stuff. It's kind of like lightning in a bottle. You end up with a guy like I'm going way back, Jim McIlvaine getting like $70 million. Remember that little? There was like a little stretch there where it was like, Juwan Howard got 100 million, and then Jim McIlvaine ended up getting like there was all these big men getting big contracts back in the mid '90s because it was right around the a collective bargaining and a handful of people really capitalized on getting much bigger contracts than they normally would have. Um, which is great. I think it's great anyways. I know a lot of people hate that, but I think it's pretty cool.
they're the ones entertaining. They're the
Yeah.
ones negotiating great contracts, right? And what I always find inconsistent in the argument of people who are opposed to it is that you're all these people, most for the most part, opposed to it are capitalists,
Right.
right? So are you against the movie stars making $100 million? Are you against certain politicians and Elon Musk making his money too?
Right.
Why are you okay with Elon Musk? If they are, why are you okay with Elon Musk making this versus Jaylen Brown or Donovan Mitchell or LeBron James
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
or McIlvain, whoever that is?
Jim McIlvaine, I think it was for the Nets.
But I'm sure I remember him being a little memory jogger. So that's just my beef, my issue. You know, if you're opposed to it for everybody because you can't stand the sight of seeing homeless people, and at the same time, there's significant difference between having lots of homeless people and someone making $100 million. I can understand that argument, right? Sell me on that argument. Don't sell me on they're athletes. They don't deserve it, like a movie star or a Elon Musk or somebody like that, or Bill Gates. Right? So I can't get down with that. So, but I'm with you. Like as long as we're capitalists, let's do this. Let's
Yeah.
get these dudes they do.
Yeah, let's go. I'm all for it. like right now, what's happening with GameStop. We talked about it briefly before this, but this guy, Roaring Kitty, um, last night, putting his position up, it was up as almost $1 billion. And the guy started with a $50,000 investment, and now I think he's got 300 some $1 million now. It is impressive. It is very impressive. And like you could say, oh, is he manipulating the market? Is he doing this? But the guy's making like this is America, right? Like these are I don't know what the American dream is anymore at this point. But like if that seems like it should be there, you turn a bunch of money into a billion, almost $1 billion. That's crazy.
So,
50,000 to a billion. That's unbelievable. As an everyday trader, as a retail trader, that's impressive. But anyway, let's start. Caitlin Clark, what we got?
so there was I guess this woman, hard foul on Caitlin Clark, and there's been a lot of talk about whether or not the hard foul from the woman's nickname is Hollywood. I can't think of her name now. Pushed Caitlin Clark hard or elbowed her,
Right.
and there were a lot of people who were really upset and criticizing and making remarks and comments. And then there was the other side that was saying, like, wait a minute, is this getting more publicity because it's a black woman pushing a white woman versus the foul on Angel Reese, where somebody pulled her hair back or elbowed her in the neck or what, something like that, and it did not get the same amount of publicity that Caitlin Clark's foul got,
All right.
right? And Bob Costas was on CNN talking about it and said, "Is there a double standard?" And there were people on that he interviewed that said, "Absolutely." And then there's the other piece that I sent you about Gino Oriamo, who said, "She's great, but she's a rookie. She's good, but she's a rookie. No
Right.
matter who it was, she's not a top 10 player.
Right.
She's not going to be an MVP. She's a rookie. She's not strong enough. She's not physically gifted enough. She's not big enough right now. He didn't say it won't couldn't be possible in the future, but there are lots of other people who are coming for her and targeting her because she's a rookie. And we talked about this before when Diana Taurasi was
Yeah.
on,
Right.
and said, "There's no way I'm letting her get off." Right? And Diana Taurasi has always been great, right?
Right.
So it's it's unique and interesting to hear the different sides and different perspectives. And is it? And there's still like people back and forth. It's almost I don't know if it's segregation or if it's the ideas become separate or the root right from the different sides is the majority of black folks who are saying unfair that she's getting this attention, but Bob Costa's saying it too. You have a lot of other people who have seen like Junior around, who doesn't make it a black white issue. It just says it's more of a issue about her physicality because she's a rookie, right? But there's still the piece: is she getting more attention? That's going to continue on and on and on, right? She is bringing more eyes to basketball. I think WNBA and college basketball. I don't think anybody can argue with that,
Yeah.
right? And I think that there's got to people at some point. I don't want to say grateful, but like if you're a woman playing in the league, do you look at this and say this is great because more she's bringing more exposure and our salaries possible more potential sponsorship and maybe our salaries get bumped up, but at the same time understand why, right? Because there are people that are better her. There are people that are. And Gino Orion was saying that this class is not that great, this rookie class, and he was talking about all of it, not singling out Caitlin Clark, saying there's a lot of classes that were so much better. So when people say, "Well, why are people mad at Caitlin Clark?" And I'm like, well, they're mad at Caitlin Clark, but they're mad at that she's receiving this attention. Right?
Right.
I think there's a big difference. I think there's a fine line between the two. Thoughts?
It kind of reminds me of a quote that I heard the late Charlie Munger say um that people aren't driven by greed. I mean, he's talking about stocks, but he said people aren't driven by greed, they're driven by envy. And it seems like people are upset. I don't know, envious is the right word, but it's just like because it's not even, I don't even think it's a race, anything. It's just like this person is getting so much spotlight, and then it just becomes a feeling of resentment towards her, regardless. Um, doesn't matter what she's doing, she's just gonna get cat like when you get that big, like people are just going to find negative things, just they're like any other superstar. And I feel like that's where we are now. We're just in this mode right now where we put her on this big pedestal and everyone's trying to knock her down off it. And that, that's just kind of the way it works. And then, maybe she loses and gets um knocked a couple of pegs down and then becomes a little bit of a underdog and everyone roots for her again. So I don't know. That's kind of where my head is with it. I agree with you. She is absolutely bringing eyeball. Like people are watching the WNBA not like because of her and not necessarily watching her. Like I've heard people say, "Oh, I watch other games because I want to get ready for when they play Caitlin." Like they're like scouting. They're like, "Oh, I want to see what this girl's doing and how she plays normally versus than she did versus Caitlin." And I want to see the aces because I hear they're the best, and I want to see how Caitlin compares. And I'm like, this is great for the sport. Like, how can you not be? But at the same time, as a competitive person, I could imagine that rubbing you the wrong way. If you're like, I'm better than you, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna knock you on your ass, and you're like I get it. It makes total sense from everybody's angle. It makes total sense. When you look at it collectively, you start to wonder though, like, hey, this is a little strange. But yeah, I get, like someone playing as well as her and bringing all the spotlight, of course it's gonna be a little bit of jealousy and resentment, hate. Like it's natural, right?
And Trinity Clark, who committed the foul on Caitlin Clark, wouldn't answer questions about it, and nor her teammates. And I agree with her. Said there is, unfortunately, a whole culture or there's an attitude that a lot of people have of just naturally disliking and rooting against somebody
Right.
for whatever reason, whether that's just who we are as a people and that's how we're born, or that's what we're learned. I don't know what it is, right? And that's just natural. Like people just want to dislike somebody or root against them until they make it, and
Right.
they're like, "Oh, that's my guy." That's my. Well, meanwhile, I mean, I just think about my own experience, right, and my kids' experience, but it's a lot of people are like that, and just constantly rooting against somebody, and the next thing you know, and so there's no, you can't like. I have no interest in seeing a WNBA game, but I do want to watch one this year.
Yeah.
I'm much more tempted if somebody says, "Oh, the WNBA game on," I'll check it out. I want to check it out. Right? I like watching women's college basketball. I like watching, especially the tournament. I just don't love the WNBA. Right? I like watching women's college softball. I enjoy that. It's a fun game, and we'll get to that one in a little bit. For talking about Oklahoma winning its fourth championship. The but when you look at WNBA, it's just not that exciting. It's kind of boring, and there's some good players, some really talented good players. And now, if there's might be a game on, or if if I'm watching the NBA championship and a score rolls across the bottom, so and so Fever winning 35-34 on ESPN. Check it out. I will go check it out. Right,
Yeah.
I'll flip to that channel. Or when I was in California a couple weeks ago, and there was the Fever were playing somebody. I think they were playing Liberty. I would have turned that on last year or the year before. I was like, oh, Caitlin Clark's playing against what's her name, Brianna Stewart. I definitely want to check that out. And I looked at it for a couple minutes. It was a blowout, and I only watched it for 5 more minutes. But there are times when I root for her, Caitlin Clark, and times when I'm not. I think I'm mixed on it, and I don't know why. I haven't put my finger on it yet. But I'd like. I mean, it would be great if the game could do well. It would be outstanding, right? And I think all this is bringing attention to the sport.
Yeah, totally.
Kennedy Carter's foul on her, the fact that she's doing well, the fact that Caitlin Clark is getting exposure, Aaliyah Boston, Angel Reese, right? They're bringing attention to the game, and hopefully more young ladies are going to start playing. More girls are going to start playing.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, Yeah. So I don't know how long this saga continues. My guess it's till the end of the year or the playoffs if the Fever make the playoffs, not looking like they will right now. But there's going to be more people kind of come at her. There's going to be more people targeting any rookie.
Yeah.
It's just
I mean,
how
does this go on past her rookie year? Let's say a couple years in the league and she's still being treated like this. Are we gonna have a different conversation?
I think we're having different conversations, and she could be the one that's targeting, right? Maybe I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
I
So
watched
get back.
some this morning on Larry Bird, and it was phenomenal. Like, people said he was the biggest trash talker, and apparently Caitlin Clark talked a lot of trash.
Yeah. No, I'm sure.
Initiates it. I don't know if she's responding, but it doesn't matter, right? She's talking trash. Larry Bird was the biggest initiator of talking trash, right? But then I watched Magic Johnson's speech to him, his final game in LA, or maybe it was Magic's last game in Boston. I don't know. And it was a phenomenal speech. But all the stories you hear along the way when I was watching the video on Larry Bird, how good he was, but he was a big time trash talker to rookies and everybody else. So, I mean, I don't mean to make Caitlin Clark on the same platform or same level as Larry Bird because it's just not possible, right? Larry Bird is Magic called him the greatest player ever. But when he was, speech, Magic was my favorite player growing up, and I hated Larry Bird as a New York Nick, as a New York person. Couldn't
Right.
stand Larry Bird. And then it came to the end of his career when he retired. That so appreciated him.
No, totally. I think
Right?
most people were the same way.
He and Magic saved the game, right?
Yeah.
Now they revolutionized, they saved it, revolutionized it, and took it to a whole nother level, right? And that's maybe where you can make a little bit of a comparison. Not Caitlin Clark's physical, right? Not her physical ability, but the fact that she's bringing eyes to the game. And I don't think people can ignore that or deny that.
Yeah. I mean, hate watching is still watching.
Rooting against her is
Yeah,
bringing attention to the game.
it is. I mean, that Magic and Bird, like those duos were incredible. I remember I mean, there weren't that many games on lives, and so all of those were, and they were just such a big deal. Yeah, it was cool, and I think um, obviously most minorities, I think, were Magic, and you think you don't want to make it a black and white thing because there were obviously black people on the Celtics, but it felt like that. It was very much like a
It is.
Boston. Yeah, it was Boston. LA is like Hollywood, and they're playing the style that is very like free and open and fast, and you know there was
It
this
is
sort
black
of
and
like,
white. It
yeah,
is. There's no way around it. For so long,
yeah,
black people were allowed to play professional sports.
right,
So it's always going to be black and white. There's no denying that, right? Black folks we're gonna root for certain players because they're at a certain time there were so few in the sport. So for so long, black people couldn't play quarterback. Even in the NFL when they were allowed to play National Football League, but weren't allowed to play unwritten rule about black folks playing male to play quarterback. Right? It's always going to be a white black issue. A lot of times it's also going to be an economic issue, right?
but there was
And
a healthy amount of respect for Larry Bird. Let's just like it's like people wanted to hate him, but he was so good and so full, like his shot making ability was so incredible to watch. It was hard to deny his greatness. So you kind of like rooted against him, but you respect. It was a weird vibe. I'm with you. It was kind of like,
it's
yeah,
Patrick Ewing's telling a story on the video I'm watching, and Patrick Ewing played at Cambridge Ridge and Latin. Cambridge is a small town in a small city or whatever you wanted, or it's a neighborhood in Boston, and he was a big time player. And he's telling a story about his rookie year before he got into the league. All his friends would tell him, "Oh, Larry Bird's not that good. He's not so good, whatever." And Pat Ewing says when he got into the league his rookie year, he says Larry Bird was killing him and killing everybody. And he said, he called all of his friends and said, "You guys have no idea what you're talking about. I don't care how slow he is. I don't care how he can't move. He is the best. He is so good. He's given everybody the business." What are you guys talking about? But and that's Patrick Ewing and his friends.
Yeah.
So he's talking about that immediate Boston area,
Yeah.
right? So we're Boston typically, whether you're black, white, or whatever, not necessarily Boston because Boston has its tradition of being a real extremely racist city, right? But you're talking about the fan base not rooting its own fan base not rooting for Boston and not
Right.
rooting for Larry.
Right.
And there's only one reason why,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
totally.
I don't think it's spelled. So there is definitely always going to be a black white issue. It's
I
just
mean,
like
it's
always going to be.
I mean, fandom is just weird in general, I think. And it comes to all this. I even think about my stance with Kobe Bryant because I was such a big Jordan fan that it was like Jordan or Kobe, and I just was on Team Jordan. And like I didn't get to really appreciate Kobe for what he was because for most of the time I was making the comparison like everyone else. This guy's just trying to be like Jordan. Jordan is better. Da, da, da. And I didn't truly appreciate Kobe until towards the end, where I was like, man, I heard him talk about how he wanted to get every ounce of talent out of him. Is why he wakes up at 3 and he plays and he cares and da, da. Like after hearing that, I was like, man, that guy. It's hard not to cheer for that guy now. Um, but I would say during the peak of his career, I was a hater, man. I was just like on Team Jordan. I was on Team Iverson. Like I just wasn't a fan of Kobe. Um, but that's how it goes, and that had nothing to do with race. It was just kind of the present. It's kind of the same presentation of the Bird and Magic kind of flipped the script on a little bit, right? It's like you hate him because he feels like Hollywood versus loving Magic for the same reason hating Kobe. It's just weird. All of it is very strange to me, but like I wonder how many people had that, in sort of that Jordan era had that same thing where it was like, I'm Team Jordan, I'm hating on Kobe, I'm gonna be team, and you convince yourself that,
Yeah, no
uh,
question. It's not rooting for someone is not limited to race,
yeah,
right? But there is like if I don't like him, or and you can and what's interesting now is there are not a lot of crazy rivalries.
no, there's not. It's
Like
different today. It's very
guys are hugging
different.
each other, guys are after games. Maybe Dylan Brooks is disliked. Chris Paul isn't the most liked guy. We know
KD
that.
maybe a little bit.
I don't know that he's liked or disliked. You have more information on that than I do. Um, but you're right. There are people who were picking Jordan or Kobe. I did for a little while,
Yeah,
and I like really appreciated Kobe and heard the stories about how hard he worked
yep,
and waking up
same.
and being at practice before the Olympics at the Olympics, and somebody got there early
Yeah,
and they thought the person in the gym and Kobe was already walking out after a 2 hour workout. Right? How do you not like something like
yeah, exactly.
that?
But we just
Respect.
didn't know. I mean, at least I didn't. I didn't know that early on. It was just those stories weren't out yet, so it was just like watching him play, and it felt like he was trying to be like Jordan when Jordan was still in the game. So it was really very odd because then you're like, what do you mean he's trying to be Jordan? But Jordan's playing right now. So like, I I'm definitely team Jordan. So um anyway, sidetrack,
No,
but
yeah, no, but yeah, you're you're onto something, right? And you never know what motivates someone to like someone. Well, we do know why, right? Sometimes people are honest about it, sometimes they're not.
yeah,
There aren't a lot of people to dislike right now.
yeah. I mean, I definitely did not do that with LeBron. I'm much more appreciative of LeBron from LeBron, and I definitely think Jordan's better or whatever. But I watch LeBron and I appreciate him, and I wanted him to win, a championship with Cleveland because um, coming home and doing all that is really that you know, um, so yeah, you live and learn, right?
Yeah, there there were villains back then, and so it was easier to root against somebody.
Totally.
Why do you root against somebody now unless there's a player on your team that you dislike that you root for? Like I was at one game and these fans were killing this one player, and it was the team they were rooting for, and I was like, my goodness, it was kind of rough. Felt badly for the guy. Um, so other than that, I just don't know how many, unless people don't like LeBron because of his politics,
Right.
right? So they're rooting against him because of that, or they don't like. I don't know. I do happen to like certain players. I take that into consideration when rooting for a player. Like I love Drew Holiday, what he does for
Yeah,
social justice, what he's done for people in the community, how he's paid people's rent, how he's spoken out. Malcolm Brogdon, right? LeBron. There's certain people that who use their status as a platform to support in favor of supporting other people who might not have the same, who might not have a voice, the underserved communities, which always impresses me.
yeah, for good, not evil.
Yep, yep, yep. Moving on to, I want to talk about um, Oklahoma softball. I mean, there's not a lot that I know about it, but I was actually in California at that wedding. We hung out for a
Uh-huh.
day for lunch, and I was watching the games, College World Series, women's softball actually, and there was a woman at the bar, and she's watching, and we're the Knicks game is on one channel, or there was an NBA game on one channel, and there was a softball game on the other, and she's watching the softball game, and we started talking, and apparently she had said she played at Fresno State. She had a women's softball body, right? She was fit and looked like she could still play. And it turned out she said she was like 35 years old. I was like, you gotta still be playing. She looked like she was 25. And she's like, no, I can't play anymore. I just can't. I can't play in adult leagues that aren't so competitive, and it's hard to find women's softball. Anyway, so we guys started talking, and she was telling me about Oklahoma. It was fascinating. Who wins four in a row, consecutive titles
So hard.
on any stage? Who does that? Like, what is this woman doing? So last night when I was watching with my little guy, last night and the night before, and the last night I think, because the playoffs again, the NBA game was on. There was like 4 or 5 minutes left in the NBA game. Across scrolling under on the NBA game, Women's College Softball, Oklahoma about to four-peat on ESPN right now. So I flipped to ESPN. I mean, the NBA game was. I didn't see the whole first half, but I know Celtics were winning by between 20 and 30 the whole game. So I flipped to that channel and watching with my little guy. And what's different, what's seemingly one of the things seemingly different about college softball, at least with the two teams last night, that I haven't seen with college baseball, but I haven't watched college baseball in the last couple of years. The level of integration, there's a lot more people of color, at least on the two teams playing last night,
Oh, interesting.
women's teams, right? Than far more than in college baseball, which I'm not sure why that is. I'm curious to know why. But these women were really good. This pitcher was amazing. And it was like at the end of the game, there was a woman from Texas hit a hard ground ball at third base. The woman cleaned it up so easily, threw her out by like a mile. And I'm watching my little guy. He was going nuts because one team was going crazy and winning the championship. Not that he had a bet on it or any horse or in the race. So, but to repeat 4 times is like, what is this coach doing different than anybody else?
Right.
Right? I don't get the whole God is good piece, because does that mean God's only good to you and not good to other people who are having a rough life?
Right.
So that's hard for me to buy into. But is she training differently? Is she recruiting differently? What makes her so successful?
Yeah.
Do you watch women's college basketball?
I have not, no.
So when I would go watch Virginia basketball games or go visit my kid in Virginia, I would always, there was two softball players who were from New York, and we were in the airport or they were at a game, and we started talking, and we became fairly friendly. And so whenever I'd go to Virginia, I'd try to go, if the softball team was playing, I'd go watch them play. It's such a fascinating, fun game. It's fast paced. They're so talented. It's a short field. Your reaction time has got to be so good. It's a fun game to watch.
I might have to pick it up.
Yeah.
If it's on in the background.
What's that?
I said if it's on, like if I see a notification it's on, I'll check it out. But
Yeah, no, you
I
should.
definitely have tuned in.
Yeah, it's fast paced. It's good. Quick, exciting. So I'm gonna try to redo a little research on the coach from Oklahoma and figure out what she's doing that's so unique to win 4 consecutive titles.
No, that's rare.
And I think they said she has 10 total titles.
Wow.
I don't know how long she's been there, so I got some
I mean,
research to
though,
do.
I always say those things aren't a coincidence, right? When you're, I mean, winning is not easy in anything. I don't care if it's a smaller league or whatever. To consistently win is not easy, and there is, I mean, I don't want to say secret sauce, but there is something she's doing that's going to be different than what everyone else is doing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. While we're on the subject of softball and baseball, last week or the Major League Baseball announced that it was going to start including Negro League stats in its history books.
I love it.
There's some, of course, there's some people who are against it and some people for it, but these players are now being recognized as some of the best players, right? And there were some great players that came from the Negro Leagues to play in the major leagues,
Yeah,
right? When they were much older. Like Satchel Paige was probably 87 when he was pitching in the major leagues. um, Jackie Robinson, Willie Mays, Roberto Clemente, a lot of these guys came over during that time and made such a big mark in Major League Baseball. Right? There's a story of Josh Gibson hitting like 84 home runs in a single season, 860, I think it was 864 for his career. There was Buck O'Neill. Um, these guys were tremendous players.
and I feel like baseball is such a stats driven game. Like that stuff matters, right? To accept those stats into the history books is pretty cool. You could argue that no other game is our stats more important than baseball, right? Like those things are precious. Those are held in high regard. So it's pretty cool that they're putting that up there.
Yeah, it absolutely is. That people are being recognized for their success and accomplishments. And there were barnstorming games. There were games that were played between all-star teams, right? And there's different stories about winning and losing, but they were competitive, from what I understand. Stories I've heard and read. So
I
why
mean,
wouldn't these guys, if they were that talented, why wouldn't they be included? If they were excluded for so long, legally or prohibited from playing, right, because of color of their skin, and now,
all right. I mean, it's a good reminder also, like we're not that far removed from this. Like we've advanced quite a bit. As a like is what we've talked about with sports and culture. Like, it wasn't that long ago that you were in a different league for the color of your skin. I mean, it's wild to think about, right? Now look, we're arguing different things, but like it's pretty we definitely made a leap forward. So good stuff there. It's a
yeah,
good reminder, because sometimes you get in this rut where you're like, God, people are the worst. And then to think about, the advancements we have made. It's slow, but you
yeah,
know, it's
and
still happening.
and when an institution does it,
Yeah.
right? Talk about people, a whole group of people who are making that decision.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to our other friend, um, Kev, and we were talking about like what was growing up in a small um city, what was acceptable language, like how we talked about as a kid of being ignorant, like kids are throwing around the word gay as a negative connotation and things like that. Like we didn't even think about I was joking like, man, we used to always talk about that in school. Like if something was bad or some weak, we would say it was gay. That's so unacceptable today. We just did not know. Like we just were ignorant as kids. Like never did it occur to me that someone in the room could possibly be gay and be offended and we're hurting them, which is really sad. But like today we're educating and people are aware of this and you don't say that. We're just like, hey man, we've come even us as people have come a long way. Even within a one generation, we've come a long way, you know? Like I would never say that today, but I remember definitely remember hearing that as a kid and not thinking anything of it. Like literally not, it just never occurred to me. But like that is, hmm,
Right. Well, hopefully people continue to be have compassion
yeah.
and educated, right,
Yeah,
and
we all need to take our part in understanding that we need to evolve and be like you said, have empathy towards other people and things you don't understand. And you know,
understand,
like there are topics where you may not understand, but you just need to be okay with that.
and how painful it could be to somebody
Yeah,
called a word.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah, that me and you have talked about it, the transgender thing. Like I'm completely ignorant of it, but now knowing like I can't imagine what it's like, so I'm not even going to pretend to um you know, jump in there and figure it out. Like it's I'm just sensitive of it and say, hey, you know, let's support them in what they need and listen to them and not be judgmental about anything. So it's kind of, you know, a different way to approach it.
and I think a lot of times people it's fear, right?
Right.
Motivated by fear that people behave the way they do negatively,
Right.
right? Or they're just completely uneducated about it, and they also some people just don't understand like how much pain could be causing somebody by just using a word,
Yeah.
making people feel badly, and making someone feel like an outcast, and making someone feel so lonely,
Right.
right? Some of the terms that are used. So I wonder in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, in what way we're going to become more educated, in what way we're going to have most people are going to be more compassionate.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
little things, you know, we have best actor, best actress. Like, why do we do that? Like, why are we dividing men and women on a skill that clearly isn't related to your gender, right? Like acting is acting. It should, you know. Um, but anyway, little things like that. I think it'll be interesting to see where we go with all of this, like in terms of equality.
Talking about acting, Biden was Biden acting? Or was he serious when he met with Travis with the? When was this? T Dubs.
I guess it was not. I mean, I saw the podcast clip from the Kelce brothers talking about it. I guess it was when Kansas City went to go visit the White House. Right before he went up, Kelce, the Secret Service came up to Kelce because last time he sort of pump faked like he was gonna go up onto the podium and say something. Um, and this time, right before they went on stage, they came over and said, "Hey, Travis, we have the authority to tase you if you attempt to take over at the podium." And and this was like, you know, through his language. And then during Biden's speech, he's offered Kelce a moment to come up on stage and take over and say what he wants to say. And he literally went up there and said, "Hey, Secret Service told me if I came up here, I'm tasing, so I'm leaving." So he didn't do what you know, he kind of was caught off guard. It's funny because he said, I didn't know if I was being trapped into getting tased and becoming a meme, so he stayed away. But then he was like, were they not communicating? And did I miss an opportunity to come talk?" But you know, anyway, he said the whole thing threw him off a little bit. I thought that was funny.
That is really funny. Hilarious. Was he being set up for? Did
Yeah,
Biden,
being set up for tasing in front of his entire team in the Secret Service. I don't know. I
for
can't
winning
imagine that was the case, but who knows?
for winning the Super Bowl, especially because he's a big supporter, right? He and
Yeah,
his girlfriend or wife are they married?
I don't know if
Yeah.
they're married. I don't think they're married.
Um, I don't. I got my own issues to keep up, trying to keep up with
Yeah,
everybody
seriously.
else's life. So yeah, but they're huge supporters of Biden, I guess, or big Democrats, so or anti-Trumpers. So I'm sure whatever you said would have been positive. It's not like he would go up there. But just the whole thing is hilarious. It really is funny.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I thought what an interesting combination of things that would happen for him to get asked up there, but being told not to go up there. You know, anyway,
And,
interesting conundrum.
yeah.
Anything else we got?
No, that's all I got for tonight. For
That
tonight.
was good. Appreciate
Yeah,
it. Next
yeah.
next week, we'll see what pops up in the news. Maybe we'll talk summer news for free agency and draft, and what's to come of it. There's a bunch of international news as well. Maybe we can dig into that with basketball anyway. So there's also the TV rights for the NBA moving over to NBC, Amazon, ESPN. I think it was $76 billion for 11 years. Incredible. So,
What
almost
was it?
7 billion a year.
What was it? Do you know what the contract was prior?
When?
What it was? You said this one's 76 billion for 10 years,
For 11 years.
11 years. What was the contract prior to this?
I don't know offhand. It was definitely not that big. It was not. I mean, it's close to double, I think. I think it was a little over a billion a year, but yeah, it's a lot. And I think Adam Silver addressed before the finals addressed and said, um, their plans. They want to go international. Their plans for expansion, and not obviously with Vegas and Seattle, but also internationally. Um, I think there's some things they could do there that could be really cool.
$76 billion,
Yeah,
11 years.
yeah, it's incredible. Adam Silver's done a hell of a job because ratings are down. So for you to negotiate and get that much more rights in dollars while your viewership is going down, that is impressive. Think about that. Like your product is going, like, less people are watching it and you're getting more money as it's kind of dwindling. But I guess there's still mass appeal to this. And then it's probably the combination of, like, when you get the rights, you also get the rights online socially. So all your social media probably takes a nice hit. You get the rights to the highlights and all those things. So um, that's a big deal though. 76 billion dollars. So yeah, those contracts are gonna get really nice. That's
The current one is, it keeps coming taking me to the new one.
Yeah, it's impressive nonetheless. So we'll
So
see.
that's
That
insane.
that means everybody's favorite show, TNT, inside the NBA with Charles Barkley and them, is gonna go away.
So where do they go? Where do those guys go? You think they get hired by?
Well, yeah, I think at least Charles Barkley has come out and said that his contract has a clause that if they lose the NBA, they release his contract. Ernie Johnson does not have that clause, so he will stay with TNT regardless. So the entire crew can't go. Um, yeah, so that show is essentially dead, right? Because Ernie does golf and whatever else is on TNT. He baseball. He does all of it. TBS. So he's staying with TNT. He's not, like, this is that is home for him. So when they lose the NBA, you lose. He goes with it. So that the crew as it stands today will be gone, which is really sad.
And no word on Kenny Smith or Shaq.
No word on Kenny Smith or Shaq, but they believe it's similar to to Charles. Whereas if they lose the NBA, then I mean they're not going to put Shaq and Kenny into a tennis broadcast. It doesn't make sense, right? Like, it just they're not going to put them into baseball, or it's just like that. The NBA is their home. Ernie's the only one that's pretty much broad enough or horizontal enough to go anywhere.
Yeah, but I think he really helps make that show. I've seen other hosts, and it's just not the
Yes.
same.
No, it's not. He's great. I have incredible rapport, and he kind of he gives them the leash and the comfort to sort of say things. Yeah. and he has the I don't even know if rapport. He just has the friendship and the personality, um, where he can get away with more than most people. Which they're gonna miss that for sure. That show is incredible. Like the highlights on that show is like truly, you know,
It's funny. It's
a
hilarious.
national treasure. It's funny.
When Barkley and Shaq go at it, just makes the show. It makes it
Yeah.
such entertainment.
Anyway, all right. Until next week.
Till next week.
Appreciate your time. We'll be back.